When we hear the phrase "once upon a time," our rational minds tend to interpret this as a remote past, something that happened long ago and holds no factual relevance anymore. However, through the lens of analytical psychology, we make a grave error. Once upon a time is not a date on a calendar. It is a location in the geography of the soul. It is mythical time, the Iliad tempest, the eternal now of the collective unconscious. Fairy tales are not about people who lived and died. They are dynamic diagrams of the processes occurring right at this moment inside of you. Every king, every dragon, every poisoned apple is not an external object, but an autonomous psychic complex, a living energy inhabiting the deep layers of your mind. By analyzing these stories, we are not doing literary archaeology. We are performing an autopsy of the living psyche. We are looking into the cleanest mirror humanity has ever produced, stripped of the rationalizations of modern culture. Therefore, I invite you to suspend the judgment of the ego. Forget that these are stories for children. In truth, they are stories for the inner child who holds the key to wholeness, that part of us that still speaks the language of symbols and dreams. If you wish to understand yourself, you must learn to read Once Upon a Time as this is happening now. A great psychological journey begins in a setting of apparent order, the village, the father's castle, the safe house. This represents the consciousness of the ego, the social persona, that which we know and where we feel safe, but also limited. The village is ruled by laws, by customs, by the way things should be. But the psyche craves growth, and growth never occurs in the safety of the known light. It demands darkness. Thus emerges the forest. In Jungian symbology, the forest, the deep sea, or the dark cave are direct representations of the unconscious. It is the realm of the unknown, of chaos, where the rules of daytime logic do not apply. Entering the forest is invariably an act of courage or desperate necessity. Note that in tales, protagonists are often forced into the forest by hunger, by abandonment, or by persecution. This reflects clinical reality. We rarely dive into our own unconscious for fun. We go because conscious life has become sterile, because we have been rejected, or because our internal demons are chasing us. The forest is the place where we lose our social identity to find our soul's essence. If you feel you are lost in the forest in your life, understand this: you are not lost. You are initiating the process. Take this moment of reflection to subscribe to the channel. If you seek to understand your own inner forest, this is the place where we draw the map. Click the subscribe button now. Paradoxically, individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, often begins with an act of disobedience. Little Red Riding Hood is instructed not to leave the path. Hansel and Gretel are forbidden to enter the woods. Bluebeard forbids the opening of a single door. Why is prohibition so central? Because blind obedience to collective norms keeps the individual in an infantile state of mystical participation with the group. To individualize, to separate the I from the they, the hero must transgress. Curiosity, that irrepressible impulse that leads to opening the forbidden door or straying from the path, is the teleology of the psyche forcing the expansion of consciousness. The mistaken fairy tales is often the beginning of salvation, the felix culpa. Without Red Riding Hood's deviation, there would be no encounter with the wolf, and without the wolf, there would be no rebirth. The psyche does not tolerate the stagnation of perpetual innocence. Innocence must be lost so that wisdom may be gained. Therefore, look at the mistakes and deviations in your life not just as moral failures, but as attempts by your unconscious to break the barriers of a too narrow life and force you to confront broader realities. Here we arrive at Jung's most famous and misunderstood concept, the shadow. In tales, it appears personified as the witch, the wolf, the ogre, the evil sorcerer. The naive mind sees these characters as evil to be destroyed. The analytical mind sees in them rejected aspects of the protagonist themselves. The witch in Hansel and Gretel is not just a cannibal. She is the terrible mother, the devouring and possessive aspect of maternity that prevents the child from growing. Yet she is also the holder of the treasure, the jewels in the candy house. The wolf is not just a predator. He has animal instinct, raw sexuality, the natural aggression that the good girl was taught to repress. By confronting the shadow, the hero is not fighting an external enemy, but integrating a dissociated part of himself. The terror we feel reading about the witch is the terror the ego feels facing what it denies in itself. But remember, where danger lies, their salvation grows also. The shadow contains the gold. It is in the witch's house that the children find wealth. It is in the wolf's belly that Red Riding Hood and the grandmother are transformed. Denying the shadow is to become weak and two-dimensional. Confronting it is painful, but it is the only source of true psychic substance. When the hero is lost, when the logic of the ego fails and despair strikes, the magic helper often appears. It can be a talking animal, a fairy godmother, a wise old man, or even an enchanted object. Psychologically, what are these figures? They represent the instinctive and intuitive forces of the unconscious that come to the aid of consciousness when it admits defeat. The talking animal is the instinct that knows the way when reason is blind. It is the connection with the biological and ancestral nature that modern man has lost. When the hero shares his bread with the dwarf or helps the injured ant, he is establishing a correct relationship with the unconscious. He is honoring instincts instead of repressing them. And in return, the unconscious, the self, provides solutions that seem magical because they do not come from linear reasoning. If you learn to listen to these subtle voices, these talking animals in your dreams and intuitions, you will discover that there is a greater wisdom operating within you, guiding you through the labyrinth. If this content is resonating with your inner search, leave your like now. This helps the algorithm bring this message to other seekers. Many tales involve a period of deep latency. Sleeping Beauty sleeps for 100 years. Snow White is placed in a glass coffin. Pinocchio is swallowed by the whale. This is the stage of nigredo in alchemy, or the descent into Hades. Psychologically, it represents the deep introversion of libido. When external life loses meaning or when trauma is too great, the psyche withdraws. It looks like death, it looks like depression, it looks like stagnation. But in the dark of the cocoon, a violent metamorphosis is occurring. The old ego must die or be dissolved so that a new attitude can emerge. The sleep of 100 years is not a waste of time. It is the time necessary for the soul to mature, protected from the demands of the world, until it is ready for the awakening of Eros. To be in the belly of the whale is to be isolated from the world, digesting one's own experience, confronting absolute darkness, only to be spit back onto the beach as a new man. Do not fear periods of darkness and inactivity in your life. They are the necessary winters that precede the spring of the psyche. The final meeting in fairy tales is often the wedding. The prince finds the princess. This is rarely about human romance. It is about the hieros gamos, the sacred inner marriage. For Jung, every man carries an internal feminine image, the anima, and every woman a masculine image, the animus. In tales, the male hero must often rescue the imprisoned princess, liberating his capacity to feel and relate, trapped by complexes. Or the heroine must find the prince, developing her capacity for action and spiritual discernment. The kiss that awakens is not sexual. It is integrative. It is the moment when the conscious, often masculine in solar symbology, and the unconscious, feminine and lunar symbology unite. Without this union, we are fragmented beings, projecting our needs onto the opposite sex. Happily ever after symbolizes the state of psychic wholeness where internal polarities have ceased warring and started collaborating. Before consummation, there is almost always a final test, an impossible task, separating grains of sand, fetching water from the end of the world, or a final battle. This demands the sacrifice of the infantile attitude. The hero must be willing to give his life, his inflated ego, to gain life, the self. Often, there is symbolic mutilation. Cinderella's sister cuts her heel. The hero loses a hand. This symbolizes that we cannot take everything with us to the next stage. We must cut off what no longer serves, sacrifice our pet neuroses, our victimhood, our arrogance. Individuation is not an addition. It is often a painful subtraction of what is superfluous. It is the fire that burns everything that is not gold. What is the goal of all this struggle? The elixir of life, the water of life, the firebird, the crown. This is the symbol of the self, the organizing center of the psyche, the divinity within. Finding the treasure means having found the meaning of one's own life, having contacted the source of energy, that does not depend on external approval. But note that the treasure is almost always guarded by the most terrible monster, the dragon. This reiterates the Jungian law. Your greatest potential is hidden behind your greatest fear. That which you most avoid looking at in your life is exactly where the gold is buried. The fairy tale teaches us that safety is sterile, and only mortal risk leads to wholeness. The tale does not end when the hero takes the treasure. He must return home. If he stays in the magic realm, he becomes mad, suffering psychic inflation, lost in fantasy. He must bring the treasure back to the village, to the real world. This is integration. It means living in the practical world, paying bills, having relationships, but carrying the wisdom of the depths. The hero is one who lives into worlds simultaneously, with feet on the ground of reality and head in the heavens of symbolism. And they lived happily ever after does not mean life became perfect and problem-free, but that the psyche reached a state of dynamic equilibrium, capable of facing challenges no longer as a frightened child, but as a complete individual. May you, upon closing this video and opening the book of your life, have the courage to enter your own forest. Comment below, what is the forest you are facing right now? Let's discuss in the comments.